Welcome to a late night edition of Ceramics with Sheriff. So we're gonna cover the basics of a pinch pot and we're gonna go through the process of how you guys are gonna build it for your project. So first, if you're in my class, we got these little clay kits for the first semester. So everybody should have been able to get a bag of clay. It should be broken up into 4 pieces. You have a little container with black underglaze. We're not gonna use that for this project, so we're gonna keep that safe. A brush for that. I can also use a brush with my water. And a popsicle stick. So those are the simple things we got. You should also have this little piece of plastic pipe. That'll be good for other projects when we're rolling out clay. So for this project, we only need a piece of clay. So, let's see, I'm gonna take maybe one of the smaller pieces. So what I want is something around the size of a baseball. So this will work perfect. We want to try to keep these pieces safe and fresh. So we want to make sure this is closed. Squeeze the air out. And then it's always a great idea to store that bag of clay in another bag of clay. Keep that wrapped up real tight. That way our clay stays soft. So that's our most important point. We want to keep this clay nice and plastic. So we're gonna have this clay to start. A pinch pot's one of the oldest known pieces of pottery because people would just take clay from the ground and they would pinch it with their hands. They didn't have machines or any tools to build bigger stuff. So the pinch pot is one of the oldest known methods of building with clay. We are gonna build our own today, and we're gonna think about a pinch pot with texture. And we can do texture 2 ways: carving by removing clay, or we can use impressing, which is stamping something into clay. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of both of that, and then I'll show you the example of how we're going to build it. So we're going to build a pinch pot with a foot, and there's multiple ways to do feet, and we'll talk about that in class. To start for a pinch pot though, it's super simple. I want to take this and try and smack it into a smooth ball. So I have a piece of cardboard here because I'm working at my kitchen table and I don't want to make a mess. So if we are working inside, we have to be careful. I have a bowl of water with a little piece of sponge that I cut off, and I'm ready to go. It'd be good to have some paper towels close too. I don't want to add water to the clay unless I'm done with it. So I'll explain that to you guys too. So what I'm going to do is just kind of smack that clay into a ball shape. And with my hand, I can kind of smack it back and forth, cupped, and then I'll keep it round. So I'm kind of squeezing and smacking at the same time. And then you can start with more of an egg shape too. It doesn't really matter, depending on what shape you want your cup to be. So I want mine to be kind of tall and narrow. So I'm not gonna squeeze that too far. So if you look at that, I don't have to worry about smoothing the clay out perfect. This is perfect start. So step 1 for a pinch pot, you take your thumb right in the center and you push straight down. And you want to be careful you don't go too far, otherwise you're going to put a hole through the bottom like a donut. We don't want donuts here. So pinch pots are kind of simple once you figure them out. Basically all you're doing is you're pushing your thumb against your fingers and pinching the clay. And then your fingers are just standing there straight to counteract the pinch. So I'm just pinching, and I kind of scoop because I want to pull this clay down so it grows taller. So basically my pinch pot is upside down. I keep it on my thumb the whole time. I can kind of smack it if I need to fix the shape a little bit, but I'm just gonna little by little around this part, so the bottom, I'm gonna pinch. Some problems people have is they start pinching right around the top and they make it super skinny, and then their pinch pot ends up going like this, like a flower. So we don't want that. So we want to make sure when we pinch, the first spot we pinch is around the bottom, upside down. So I'm just gonna slowly pinch. I don't want to pinch too much, I don't want to press too hard. So I'm really just tapping and going a little bit at a time. So you can see it's kind of staying smooth. If the outside of your pot is cracking a little bit, that's okay. And then as I pinch that, I can feel it's thinner in my hands. I'm gonna start to move down a little bit at a time. So the last thing I want to pinch is the top of the bowl or the cup. So remember, we want to keep our fingers straight and just push the clay against our fingers with our thumb. Now I'm doing this faster than I normally would. So you can see my top hole is still pretty small. You can see how it's starting to rip because it's a little dry. So secondarily, another technique you can do. So obviously the pinch pot's upside down, right? If I put it sideways on my hand, I can kind of use my thumb and smooth the inside of that out, but it also smooths it out and stretches it and like thins the bowl out as I go. So that's a secondary option if that works better for you guys. I tend to do that after I pinch it because it helps smooth the inside out. So now I'm gonna keep going a little bit more. So I'm probably like right about here where I'm pinching. Now this clay is a little bit dry. We are in Phoenix, which is kind of a bummer, but there we go. So I have my general cup. Yeah, the top looks ugly right now, but I'm gonna fix that once I get my sponge going. So I have my cup. I'm gonna take my little sponge. I only need to do this if my clay is dry. So you guys can see how mine's dry. So I'm just gonna kind of add a little bit of moisture around some of those parts. And then I'm just gonna take my hand and smooth over everything. So when I do this, I'm making sure I support the inside. Because I want to keep that shape that I have. This would be a great use for a rib, but because we don't have tools, I'm gonna skip that for now. Those of you, we talked about using like a credit card. I have one in here. So you don't want to use a cardboard one like this, but if it's a plastic credit card, I could bend it. This works pretty good. I could bend it and smooth that clay. So I'm just bending this to match that. So once again, we can use a credit card in replacement of our rib. You gotta ruin it, don't you, Lexi? So, here's my pinch pot, right? I have the outside pretty smooth in the way I want it. The top is uneven, and that bothers a lot of people. The best way to fix that is to cut it. So I do not have a knife with me, but I might be able to pull one of these toothpicks. Maybe I can do this. So I'm using toenail clippers. So I can just take that. Anything that's thin and like strong will work for this. A plastic knife would be great. So there we go. I trim my top off. Now remember, these are just little cups, but a general guide is we want the thickness of the clay between our thumb and our pinky. So if I slice this down, a lot of people leave this part super chunky, this corner right here. So make sure, just pinch, feel it all the way around. You're going for generally, you want this thickness throughout the whole thing. That takes some time to figure out with feel, but otherwise it's not something that's too hard, but a lot of us tend to make our pinch pots too fat. So now what I'm doing is just smoothing out the rim, and then I'll just take my fingers over it to kind of make it nice and round, because if I'm going to drink out of a cup or something, I don't want the edges to be sharp. Now secondarily, I did not put too much effort into smoothing out the outside, because we're gonna do impressions or carving, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, now that I have my cup, I want to work on the foot. So the foot, I might want to wait till my clay is more leather hard. But there's a couple ideas we can do for feet. I'm just going to do 3 little pegs. You could do a ring on the bottom. You could do a bunch of little legs. It's entirely up to you, whatever you want to do. The foot just helps elevate the piece off the table and it gives it a more finished look. So I'm going to make my 3 little feet just with some of my scrap clay here. Now, once again, we don't need and we don't want anything that's thicker than our thumb. So if I have anything thicker than like this little marble-sized piece of clay, I need to make sure it's hollow on the inside. So that's how I'm gonna do my feet. And here I have my handy dandy scoring tool. It's 6 toothpicks taped together. So all I'm gonna do is scrape up where they were gonna go just a little bit, dip that in water, scrape it again, and repeat my 3 times. So you can see what that looks like. I'm gonna do the same thing to the bottom part of the feet. So this actually works really great. And you can see it makes its own slip as I go, so all that mud stuck on there. We can use that, and then 1, 2. Now I don't want to just tap them on there. I really want to squeeze them on there, give them a little wiggle, make sure they're adhering on there, and then I want to take a tool, maybe like I can use the end of the brush just to go around the seam where they attach together and kind of just finish it up, make it look nice and neat. Now, if my pot is still super soft, what I probably don't want to do, and especially if I make a fragile foot, is set it down on that. I might want to kind of mess around with it to get it to sit right. But if I'm going to leave this overnight, I probably want to leave it sitting upside down. That way it keeps its shape and doesn't squish the foot. So you guys were to plan impressing or carving. So I decided to go with impressing, and some things I found around my house are a comb. I don't know what this is, but it has these cool little edges. I found this little Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. This is from a bottle of perfume. It's a cloud, which is pretty dope. Same with this little symbol. So I'm just gonna really experiment. And I found this top of a candle from Bath & Body Works that has this cool texture. So I'm gonna try a couple different things. You can see I did a little bit, but it didn't do too much. So that'll get set to the side. Not as cool as I was hoping for. So let's try the cloud. So basically what I want to do is push it into the surface and kind of push it hard and wiggle it in. Cool. So there's impression number 1. I have my cloud. So maybe I'll do a cloud on both sides. Obviously I would want to plan this beforehand, but so in my plan, I would draw my clouds on my both sides. This is just for educational purposes. So cloud, cool. And then I would go along and finish doing all my impressions, and then you want to try and reshape the inside. So real quick, I'm just gonna, because when you do the impressions, you know, they bend the shape of the pot. So I'm doing these cool little floor things. Fleur-de-lis, I think they're called. So the impressions are kind of hard unless you have something that's kind of deep. So like something like this would work great. So in order for you guys to see better, I'm gonna bring you close. But here are my impressions so far. Now you can see how I've really altered the shape of this just from pressing. So you gotta be careful. It's better to wait till it's leather hard. So wait till it firms up a little bit. But that's the general idea. So now that I did those, I can go back inside and kind of correct my shape a little bit. I just want to be careful I don't ruin all that texture and those designs I put on the outside. But really, it's more of an experimentation thing. Trying to make pattern with texture. Just seeing what works and what doesn't. So the comb's pretty cool. I could do some abstraction with that. I'm just messing around right now, but here's a little Millennium Falcon thing I found around my house, like a pin. So I could take that. So that's another one of those things that I thought would work really good, but don't. Let's see if I push a little harder. Well, that's kind of cool. And then the real goal is to add texture to a pinch pot and learn how to do a pinch pot with our foot. So that's pretty much it. So obviously we want to refine our shape. We want to try and get the best shape possible. And then we want to add texture through impressing, so stamping, or carving. So here's something simple too. Like I can just add designs this way. So something like a screw or a screwdriver. So there's another simple way to add something, and it adds a cool texture on the outside. With my clouds too. If I was doing the carving, I would either use my paper clip, which I don't think I have over here, or something like a pencil, and I would do my designs that way by, carving chunks out or doing some sort of pattern or design. So this is entirely up to you guys. I'm gonna cut this just to give you guys an example. So this is just a quick example, but I'll show you what our goal is here, and we'll see if I met the goal. Well, that's not bad. So the goal with our pinch pots is no fatter than my thumb, so I'm good, and no skinnier than my pinky. So it's just about my pinky, so that's perfect. It is a little bit thicker on the bottom, but that's okay, it's not bad. So don't do this, but the general goal when we're doing these pinch pots is that we want this to be our form. So put together, it looks like a cup, but when we cut it apart, the goal is to have the thickness no fatter than our thumb, no skinnier than our pinky. And that's it. So pinch pot, a foot. So I did little dots for my feet. You guys can do whatever you want. You could do a little ring on it. You could do little legs coming off it. You could do feet. You could put someone's feet on there. So whatever you guys want to do. And then you can either use texture through stamping or impression. So that word is called impression. Or you can use texture through carving. So that is up to you guys. You can use both. Have fun with it, experiment a little bit, but what I want you to do is plan out what your goal or what you want your pot to look like, and then maybe go around and look around your house for anything that's neat. Like this was from a perfume bottle. This was from a cologne bottle. So cologne bottles and perfume bottles have cool tops apparently. I don't know what this is. I found it in my garage, but that would have been cool. Or we just have the good old pencil. We have our little tools we made. Last but not least, if you guys are working on your project and you're done for the day, do not forget about cleanup. A good idea is to keep your project in 2 separate plastic bags. So I put it in one, make sure that's closed, put it in another one, and then make sure it's tied up and stored away. Target bags work great. Fries bags are kind of thin, so I would definitely use 2. It's always a good rule to use 2. And make sure this clay is zipped up and put in other bags so that we keep that all safe. And lastly, you want to clean up your space. So I've been working on cardboard all day, but if I got some clay on the table or tools, I really want to do a good job to clean them up, and the best way is with a wet towel or wet paper towels, preferably something that's not important. So I'm going to use wet paper towels in a spray bottle and then wipe down my area and clean everything up. I'm going to clean my little cup out with water. This was just a sponge from the sink. It has like the scrubby side, make sure you don't use that. And then that's it. Make sure my tools are clean. I put everything away, and then that way everybody's happy. So hope you guys have a good day. Plan out your projects and have a good time with it, and we'll start it later this week.